Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because I'm going to give you guys a review for the third installment in the Fantastic Beasts franchise that finally came out after years of delays and 4 years after the second installment, and it is called Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. It is once again directed by David Yates, who helmed the previous two movies and the final four Harry Potter movies, and it once again stars Eddie Redmayne, Jude Law, Dan Fogler, Alison Sudol, and Mads Mikkelsen playing Grindelwald this time around. And before we get started, don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below, so don't forget to do that while you're at it. And with that said, let's get started. The Secrets of Dumbledore follows Albus Dumbledore as he forms a team consisting of Newt Scamander, Jacob Kowalski, Theseus Scamander, and many more as they go on missions to stop Grindelwald from continuing to make his move on trying to take over the magical and muggle world. It's been a while since The Crimes of Grindelwald came out, and that was personally my least favorite movie in the franchise. I really enjoyed that first movie for being a fun little story with Newt Scamander trying to find all of the beasts that have been unleashed upon New York City. That was a fun idea. And I didn't like that the second movie just pushed all that aside and focused more on this battle between Dumbledore and Grindelwald as he wants to take over the world, because it felt like something we've seen before with Harry Potter and Voldemort. So I was a little nervous with this movie because I did like the idea of Mads Mikkelsen playing Grindelwald after Johnny Depp got fired, but I wasn't sure about how I felt about some of the things I've seen about this movie. And it is safe to say that it is a far better movie than The Crimes of Grindelwald. I think it's a much more focused and consistent movie because the second movie felt like it exists primarily to hype you up for the other movies. And it really doesn't have much of an identity of its own because the second movie didn't know if it wanted to be a sequel to that first movie about Newt and magical creatures, or if it wanted to just be this movie about Dumbledore trying to stop Grindelwald. And so it had a tonal clash, and I didn't think the story was all that great with that movie, and there were a lot of things that just doesn't make sense with timeline continuity errors and character decisions. The second movie wasn't all that good. This movie was a lot better. It had a much more focused story because it decides to go on the path of being about Dumbledore and Newt as they find ways to stop Grindelwald from enacting his master plan. So it had an identity of its own, which I liked, and the movie felt very consistent for the most part. The Beast had a much more important role in this movie than they did in the last movie, especially a certain creature that has such a huge part in the overall story, which ties into Grindelwald's plan, Newt's plan, Dumbledore's whole scheme of things. So in that case, it's a much more focused movie, which I appreciate. It had an identity of its own, and I thought the cast is really good. Eddie Redmayne is very charismatic and charming as Newt Scamander once again. I really love his dynamic with Dumbledore, with Jacob Kowalski, with his brother Theseus. There are some funny moments he has, especially with the Beast, especially in the moment you saw in the trailer with him learning to shrivel with all the crabs. That's a funny moment. He's a really fun character. I really like him. And I really like Jude Law as Dumbledore. He's one of the best parts about Crimes of Grindelwald, and he's once again really great here. I love his dynamic with even Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald. I think Mads is the best actor to portray Grindelwald to date. He's very sinister. He has this very menacing presence every time he's on screen because Mads Mikkelsen is a very talented actor. I really liked him in movies like Casino Royale and Another Round. So I really like the idea that they cast him as Grindelwald after Johnny Depp was removed from the movies. And so I really liked what he did in this movie. I liked his presence. I think he was very menacing as a character. I loved his dynamic with Dumbledore, which is one of the highlights and one of the biggest parts about this movie. And I really liked a lot of the intensity he brings on screen. And I think the other cast was great. Dan Fogler is the comedic relief as Jacob. I love him. He is very funny. I love how he's just a muggle and he's being thrown into all these things that involve wizards and witches. And I think he's a really fun character. And there's still some really fun things that happen with him in this movie. He's really fun to watch. I like him. Callum Turner does a lot more this time around as Theseus Scamander, so I really enjoyed him, and his dynamic with Newt is really fun to watch. And I really liked Lally from the second movie. Has much more to do in this movie, and I think she is also really great in this movie. And I think it was a bummer we didn't have Katherine Waterston returning as Tina, because I love her dynamic with Newt, and she's only in like 2 scenes of this movie. So overall, the casting is good here. The score by James Newton Howard is once again awesome. I love the scores that he does for the Wizarding World, and especially this one. You have some tidbits of the Harry Potter theme every now and then, especially when you're in the Hogwarts scenes. It's once again really great as always, especially in action sequences and even some very serious moments. I think the score here is once again really great. The visuals are really good looking, especially in the 3rd act of this movie. Not the best looking movie in the franchise, but it is a solid movie to look at, especially when you have all these magic fight sequences, especially between Dumbledore and Credence. So that stuff looks really good. And there's some fun moments to be had throughout. Again, the Beast have much more to do here. There's some humorous moments that come with them, and especially from characters like Jacob Kowalski and Newt with how he does things as a zoologist. There are some fun moments to be had here. The second movie didn't have as much of the fun moments, but I think this movie brings back some of that charm you had from the first movie, which I really appreciated seeing. Another thing I think is really cool here is this movie is like a political thriller. I never imagined a political thriller in a world like the Wizarding World. And I think it was done really well here because they're trying to stop Grindelwald from being elected as the magical leader of the Wizarding World. And I think that the idea of it being a political thriller, I think actually worked well, because there are moments where you really want your heroes to succeed. You want them to stop Grindelwald because of all the dangers and all the things that will happen if Grindelwald were to succeed. And so I like that aspect. You can feel some of that tension, because I love political thriller movies in any kind of franchise, whether it's Captain America, the Winter Soldier, or even Batman v Superman. I really like political thrillers, that kind of genre. And this movie has that vibe with this movie, and I think it works well, and it continues to give that more of an identity of its own when you watch this movie. If you're a huge Harry Potter fan, there are things about this movie that you are going to love. There are some Easter eggs and nods. I think you all will have big happiness when those moments play out, because there are some nods to it, especially as it's a prequel series to the Harry Potter franchise. This movie also doesn't have as much of Queenie and Credence in this movie, and I didn't really like the direction they took with both characters in the last movie, so I wasn't too bothered by the lack of screen time both characters had here, but what they had here I was pretty satisfied with for the most part. However, I'm still not entirely sold on the series being about these characters as they try to stop this villain from taking over the world, because we've seen that before with Harry Potter and Voldemort and the Battle of Hogwarts. It feels like we've done that before, and this movie still doesn't quite change my mind on how I feel about that direction, because while this is a massive step up from the previous installment, and it is a much more entertaining movie at that, I'm still not quite sold on the idea of making these movies more about the battle against Grindelwald than on the creatures themselves. While I do think I did like how this movie was a political thriller in some aspect, and it has an identity of its own, and it commits to what it wants to be and what it tries to do, I still feel like this isn't quite right to be doing something like Harry Potter, because you just can't really recreate what makes Harry Potter so great. And then some characters from the previous movies did not have as much screen time here. Tina is not in this movie, aside from 2 scenes. Credence is not in this movie all that much. And certain characters, too, are just there. And as much as I love Newt Scamander as a character and how fun he is to watch, he feels thrown in there because he doesn't have as much of an arc, and he's there just to service Dumbledore's story as he tries to stop Grindelwald. And I think the only characters that really have changed over the course of this movie are basically just Dumbledore and Grindelwald and Credence and some other characters. But the main character himself, Newt, I love him. There's some fun moments here, but it didn't feel like he's had as much of a character growth in this movie compared to the first movie at that. And it also feels like this movie wasn't sure if its main protagonist was Newt Scamander or Dumbledore, because on one hand, whenever you focus on the Beast and that side of things in this mission, Newt's your focus, but then when it comes to the overall scheme of things and the battle against Grindelwald, it focuses on Dumbledore. And so it didn't feel like the movie was clear on whether it wanted its main protagonist to be Newt or Dumbledore. And we are 3 movies in, and they plan 2 more movies. So I'm really hoping in this next movie they settle with who they want to be, because this movie did not seem like it knew who its main protagonist was, despite knowing what kind of movie it is as a whole. Not as big of a problem here, but I did miss the dynamic between Newt and Tina in the previous 2 movies, because Katherine Waterston was only in this movie for 2 scenes, so she didn't have a main role here. And it's a bummer because I really like her presence on screen, and her scenes and chemistry with Eddie Redmayne's Newt I think is really charming and cute. So the fact that in this movie she's not really in it that much, it's a bummer, because I liked her character and I really hope they bring her back in the next 2 movies, knowing how their relationship will pan out. So I really hope that she gets a bigger role in the follow-ups. The story also could have done more with the characters and the direction. Some moments drag out longer than they need to, and some characters don't quite do as much in this movie. I wanted more of quite a few characters, especially from the previous 2 movies, so it really shocked me how some of them didn't have all that much in the 3rd movie in comparison. And I feel like we could have had more of certain moments in the story when it comes to the big relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald in their past. You do get some of that sheds light in this movie, but I do think I would have liked more of their scenes together, more of their relationship, because the 3rd act is good, and I did like the way that side of things paid off by the end of the movie, but I could have liked more moments between them, because they were some cut scenes with them that I think that would have been elevating what we got in the 3rd act here. Some moments could have just been shortened. The pacing is a lot better than the 2nd movie, but I feel like some parts kind of play on longer than they need to. So I feel like some parts could have just been shortened for the sake of time. And I definitely think that some parts just could have been expanded upon more than they could. Could have had more development with certain characters, or even give certain characters more purpose in this movie, because it just feels like everyone's role in this movie really just comes on to Dumbledore, because it is called The Secrets of Dumbledore, and he is the master planner of everything that happens in this movie when it comes to the protagonist. And so I feel like I would have liked more from certain characters and more focus on certain moments than we ended up getting. All in all, Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore is it's a fun enough movie for what it is. It's a big step up from Crimes of Grindelwald. It has an identity of its own. I love Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald and Jude Law as Dumbledore, and I liked the cast. And I think there are some fun moments to be had here, both on the political thriller side of things and so as with the creatures. But I still am not fully sold on the direction they want to take this franchise. And some characters could have had more development or arc for me to latch onto in this movie. And I feel like the story could have done a lot more than it did. So in the end, I'm torn on what letter grade to give this movie, but for now, I'm going to give The Secrets of Dumbledore a B. And I recommend this movie for fans of the Wizarding World only. If you're a fan of the Wizarding World franchise, whether you're skeptical of the Fantastic Beasts movie or not, I think you should still go check this movie out, because it is a far better movie than Crimes of Grindelwald, and it left me more satisfied with how this movie turned out, especially with its resolution. So if you're a fan of the franchise, I still think you should go check out this movie. I don't know whether I prefer Fantastic Beasts or Where to Find Them or Secrets of Dumbledore, because both things do things I think the other does better, but they are far better than Crimes of Grindelwald, for sure. It has a proper story, and it actually has some exciting moments that does not feel like it's made just to set up other movies. And so in that case, it is a far better movie. It didn't quite blow me away, nor did I walk out surprised loving this movie, but it's a fun enough movie for what it is. And I'm just wondering what could they do with these next 2 movies. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore. What did you think about this movie? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys will click the like button and subscribe button, and stay tuned for more.
What is this place?
The room we require.
Correct. 3 points to Hufflepuff.